Fichelli, and I'm the co-founder and head educator at Dailies. Today, I have the privilege and pleasure of chatting with Miss Courtney, one of our fabulous and very incredible Dailies Pods teachers. Courtney, really excited to chat with you today about a topic in education that you're passionate about. Will you go ahead and give us a quick intro to yourself and also tell us about what we'll be chatting about?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Courtney, like you said. I have been in the education field for 6 years now. It's crazy. I'm getting old. I went to school for psychology and I did like an internship with Girls on the Run and Stride. Don't know if you've heard of that, but it's like a running and social emotional club for kiddos. And I realized that I loved working with the kids there, and I quickly changed my major to elementary education. I actually double majored in elementary education and psychology with a minor in biology because I took so many science classes. I just love science. And then after that, I taught mostly fourth grade. I love fourth grade, but I've done kindergarten, fifth grade, kind of all over the place. And then I'm here at Dailies Pods and I teach kindergarten and fourth grade right now.
Excellent, excellent. And then what topic will we be chatting a little bit more about today?
We are going to be chatting about responsive classroom.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That's one of the practices that we have at Dailies Pods, built into every single small group class that we do. So excited to kind of further explore this with you today and share some information with parents and other teachers. So excited to get going.
So when I was kind of looking at Dailies Pods, I realized that you did use a lot of those responsive classroom. So what I'm looking for, you used a lot of things that were included in responsive classroom, and I really like that. That's how you build community with your kiddos.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Did you use responsive classroom practices in your traditional classroom as well before coming to Dailies?
I did, yes. I worked at a school that really, really supported and loved responsive classroom. And then I also worked at a school that not so much. They were really focused on the academics, and I could definitely see a difference between my two classes. And I am 100% a supporter of responsive classroom. The benefits are amazing.
Yeah. So for those people that maybe haven't heard of responsive classroom, or teachers that have maybe heard of it but haven't actually implemented it, can you kind of give us an overview of maybe some of the core principles or foundational ideas, and then also how you implement that in your class?
Yeah, so responsive classroom is very student-based, student-led, community building. The first, probably the most important part of responsive classroom is your morning meetings. In a typical classroom, it would happen in the morning, but for us, it happens at the beginning of any class, whenever that is. And this is where that community really starts to build. And then it goes into, we have quiet time. We used to have quiet time in my classroom, and it was my older students' favorite time of day. They weren't allowed to talk at all, but they could do whatever they wanted except technology. There was a no tech time, and they just had to be quiet, and they loved it. They would always ask me for more quiet time. And then we also have what's called a like timeout or a recharge. If a student needs that time, they can just go off into their safe space and take a second to recharge, refuel if they feel a little off. And then we always ended our day with a closing circle, which we do here at Dailies as well. So for morning meeting, I can go into what you do for a morning meeting.
Yeah, that'd be great. Kind of walk us through each of those kind of 4 elements that you have, and maybe share a little bit about your experience in the physical setting, but then also how you implement those practices in the virtual classroom space.
Sure. So a typical responsive classroom morning meeting starts with a greeting, which is where the students are greeting each other. You can do this in kind of fun or silly ways. I used to teach them like how to say hello in a different language, or they would have a hidden letter or something and have to find their match and say hello. It's a good time to teach them the proper way to handshake, maybe before COVID. Lots of sanitizer, things like that. And they just learn how to, say hello and ask someone how they're doing that day. And then the next thing we went into in a morning meeting was our share time. And I believe this is what we call a discussion or question in Dailies Pods. And sometimes I would give them a question to answer and they would share their answer. And sometimes it became like a show and tell where students got to just share something about their lives. Either one was really fun.
Mhm.
And then the next part, probably my favorite part, and I think the students' favorite part was activity.
Mhm.
And this is where you just play a fun game of some sort. There's so many different games you can play, like
Yes.
so many. And then our last part would be our meeting message, which is where I would write a message on the board and read it to them. And this kind of helps sets the tone for our day. They know what we're going to be learning about, they know what we're going to be doing. And for the younger ones, it's also a good time to throw in some like grammar mistakes or spelling mistakes and see if they can catch them.
Yes. Yes, and like those phonics skills is something that I worked in when I was a kindergarten teacher, was like, can you find like the phonics pattern that we're working on, or the word family of the week, in the morning message. So pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
fun. So here at Dailies, I've kind of been trying to figure out how I can incorporate what I did in my classroom in person to my virtual classes. I've been trying to change all of my games to virtual. Some of them are hard. You have to come up with new games, but when I when I saw that on the lesson plan when I first started working with dailies, I was like, I've got this. I know how to do this. So that
Yeah.
was awesome.
I think too, like more so the intentionality of creating that safe space for kids in the virtual setting, virtual education kind of got a bad rap during COVID because public schools weren't equipped to, move instruction virtually. But Dailies has been really intentional about making sure that they still feel connected to their teacher and they still feel connected to their classmates and they can have those fun moments. And the fact that we start every class period like that on that high note just, I think, really helps the overall class flow, really. So
Yeah, especially the share. I love when the kids bring something to share to class and they call out another student. They're like, "Do you see what I have?" They're like, "That's so cool." And it's just so fun to see them interact.
yes, yes, for sure. My son loves his classes with you. So and I'm sure that he's always talking about, oh my gosh, I have to show it to Miss Courtney. I have to show it to my other friend in class. And so it's so sweet how excited they are about just getting that time to connect as kids, really authentically, through the responsive classroom practices. So yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else you wanted to share about like morning meeting, or we call it meeting greeting at Daily Spots?
Yeah, I think it's so important that everyone incorporate that in their teaching. It gets the students comfortable with sharing and talking with each other. It sets the tone for the day, puts everyone in a good mood. And I really think it's part of the most important part of teaching. It really just is what connects. And students can't learn if they don't trust you and don't respect you. And that's how you gain that trust and respect.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So you had kind of mentioned like three other elements that you've done of responsive classroom before. Is there another element you'd like to expand upon a little?
Yeah, I can talk about quiet time, I think is the next one I said. So quiet time in the classroom, in the in-person classroom, it looked like 10 to 15 minutes normally after recess so they can kind of calm down.
Yes.
And it was completely silent. I turn off the lights. And like I said, they could do whatever they chose. If they just wanted to sit and stare, they could do that. If they wanted to put their head down, they could do that. If they wanted to draw, read, whatever they wanted to do. And as long as they were silent, and it was just kind of their time to relax and bring it back together. And it was, like I said, my fourth graders' favorite time of day, which just shocked me. They loved it. They begged me for more quiet time. So quiet time in the virtual space, we only have an hour together in class. So there's not much quiet time. I want the kids participating as much as they can. But let's say we're trying to write a sentence or get a drawing or a project done, because we do a project at the end of every class. And the kids are talking and really excited and they're not getting their work done. I might be like, okay, friends, quiet time for 3 minutes while we get our work done. So that's how I incorporate it into our classes here.
I love it. I love it. And also like the daily school day is broken up so that they can have quiet time. They're not, on the computer all day long in classes. So parents, that'd be actually a really great strategy for parents too. Like maybe at the end of their classes for the day, just give them like 30 minutes of silent time just to to do something that's productive-ish or relax or whatever before they kind of transition into home life again.
Yeah, that time to decompress and be a little independent is important for them.
Yes, yes. I remember trying to manage quiet time with my kindergartners, and I was like, "Woo, this is really intense," because they just move all the time. So we had really clear like behavioral expectations of like, you have 5 minutes to get everything that you're going to need, and then we're going to set the quiet time timer, and you stay in your one spot for quiet time. Because especially when you have that many bodies really in the physical space, it becomes more about like movement and
Mhm.
logistics than sometimes like the true quality quiet time. So
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. And then another part of responsive classroom that I loved was the refuel station. You can call it whatever you wanted, but that's what I called it. And we also used flexible seating in my classroom. So we had a special little area that was nice and cozy, lots of pillows and things, where if a student was having a rough time, no questions asked, they can just go sit there, hang out. They know to be left alone. And whenever they're ready to come back, they can come back. So it kind of helps avoid any freakouts that a student might have. And they
Yeah.
know like if they feel themselves building up, they just go and relax instead of letting themselves build up until it's too late.
Mhm.
Um, I haven't had to use that in virtual dailies here, but it might be a good thing for parents to use and
Mhm.
to kind of teach their kiddos to recognize their emotions and when they're getting overwhelmed, like, hey, this is a safe spot in our house. If you want to go there, go ahead.
Yeah, I think that that's like really critical too, right? Is the fact that they would have their own space to decompress before, kids have lots of big emotions and we're trying to like help them navigate that and how best to cope. And sometimes it's not like, oh, they just blew up. Now's the perfect time to go talk to them. Like let them cool off and kind of teach them what that looks like when they're not escalated. And I think like the refuel station is a great thing to have. My middle son, he has some sensory challenges. And so even in his daily school classes, we're like, if you need to walk away for a minute, like that's totally fine. Step away, take some deep breaths, go get a drink of water, go back to class. And his teacher is super understanding of all of that too. So
Mhm.
it's definitely different when you're learning from home, because if you have this space even in your physical setting, like that's incredible. And you know that you're not fighting over the refuel station or whatever. That was another thing of like how many people can use it at the same time. So yeah, that's a really great point too on how parents can help bring that practice into their home.
Yeah, definitely. It was helpful. And then lastly, this isn't all the parts of responsive classroom, but I guess the ones that are sticking out most in my head. And
Yeah.
then we always ended our day with a closing circle. So in the physical classroom, dismissal is always just kind of a crazy time of day. And I remember my first year, we didn't really do a closing circle of sorts. It was like, quick, pack up, because you use every minute you can, and the day goes by so fast. I'm like, get your things pack up, and then it's like time to go, and the kids are crazy, chattering loud in the hallway.
Mhm.
So we started doing a closing circle and packing up 5 minutes early. They come make a circle, and then we share like peaks and valleys of our day. What was your peak? What was your valley? Highs and lows. What do you hope to do tomorrow? How can you make tomorrow a better day? Things like that. And it just, again, kind of calms the students down. They're not rushing to pack up and feel stressed trying to get to their area and do what they need to do. And it also was feedback for me because I got to find out what the students liked about our day, what they might be struggling with, and what we can do better the next day.
Yeah, kind of recircling back on, that team mindset. The reflection piece I think is really critical. So I guess like how does that transfer over to your dailies pods classes?
Yeah, in Dailies pods, again, I have to really make an intention to stop 5 minutes early because I'm always like, oh, I'm always running out of time. But we always try to, at the end, like I said, we always do a project at the end of class. So I always want to give each student time to share their work that they've made, and then a couple minutes to ask them a reflection question, or if they have anything else they want to share with me that doesn't have anything to do with what I'm asking, that's fine too. Just, those few minutes at the end of class for them to let me know anything they need to know, or I might ask them like, hey, what was your favorite part of class? And some things like that.
Yeah, that time to reconnect as people at the end. So you connect as like real authentic people. You do the teaching and learning, and then also that kind of like reflection kind of closes it all for full circle.
Yes.
Yeah, glad to hear that that is going really well too. Um, yeah, anything else that you wanted to share about either of those four? I have one more thing that I used in my class that I was going to ask you about, but if you have anything else.
Well, yeah, I would love to hear what you used.
Oh yeah, energizers. Did you use those in your class?
Oh, yes, yes, yes,
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
time.
I was gonna say those were like the big, like super popular things. Like even some of the time we would use the energizer as our activity in the morning. Um,
Mhm.
so I guess could you maybe speak to those?
Yeah, energizers or brain breaks, I guess, are times when maybe you've been working really hard and you can tell the kiddos are getting a little antsy and you're like, okay, break. And it can be something as simple as like Simon Says, or sometimes I would put a Go Noodle on the board, which is great for parents to use at home too. I think anyone can have a Go Noodle account. You can just put it on your laptop, your TV screen, and it helps with hand-eye coordination, all kinds of things. There's a million dances for them to do, and the kids love it. Um, yeah, different cooperative games for the kids to play, which helps with teamwork and all those things. And whenever the kids need a break and you want to pull out an energizer, they love them.
Yeah, yes, for sure. My teacher team, we actually ended up creating like a little popsicle stick jar with like different ideas on it, and then we let the kids pick, and it felt like very random but really fun and engaging. So that's actually a really great strategy too for parents that are like, maybe your kids aren't listening close to dinner time, and maybe you could have them pull a stick and do something together, or just to kind of break up the monotony of the day.
Yes.
So
And
that,
we use those in classes. I think all the teachers here do. It could be something just like I'm thinking to my theater class I taught earlier today. It can be a lot of sitting for the kids and waiting when it's like their turn to say their lines in our play. And I can tell they get antsy. So like before we'll practice our lines, I'll say, okay, everyone get up and do 10 jumping jacks. So it can be something as simple as that.
yeah,
Or sometimes we'll play like dance along videos or red light, green light. There's so many options to do.
yes, yes. Maybe we should like create like a list for our teachers, but also for parents,
Yes.
resources for those, because I find as a parent it's super helpful, because they start pushing the limit maybe a little closer to the end of the day when they're getting tired.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's a great idea too that we can incorporate for families.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you wanted to share about responsive classroom, or how you utilize it in your physical classroom or dailies pods, or anything you would share with parents either?
Um, the last thing I kind of wanted to say about it is something that I really took to heart in the training for responsive classroom was natural consequences.
Mhm.
So I think a lot of parents, teachers, whoever can kind of get caught up like, I swear I had a spill in my classroom every single day. I'm like, oh my gosh. But instead of like freaking out, panicking, making the kid feel bad, I would just be like, you know where the paper towels are. Your natural consequence for spilling is you have to just pick it up and that's it. Like just not making a big deal out of things, not punishing a student for their behavior. It's just whatever happens, happens, and there's going to be a consequence to that. So it's your choice. Do you want the consequence or not? Because you've been given all the tools, you know what you should be doing. And if you're not doing that, something's going to happen. And
Yes.
that's something I kind of took to heart because I'm not a big punishment person unless it's like, something very, very bad, which responsive classroom kind of avoids all of those behaviors because of the way you've set your classroom up. Your students know your expectations, they're very set in stone, and you honestly aren't dealing with many behaviors once you start using responsive classroom.
Yes, yes. The logical consequences piece is something that I've kept in my back pocket as a parent, because I'm like, okay, making sure that, they do so many things in a day that it's like, okay, less than ideal, but also like the realization that they're little, they're learning, they have to be taught, and, there will be consequences for their behaviors, but it should make sense for what like the offense was, right?
Yes.
So I love that you talked about like spills. I mean, it's not like they're dumping their water bottle out on purpose. Like accidents happen. So
Yeah, because I know like some teachers who would say no water bottles on the desk. I'm like, but I'm a person who drinks a lot of water, and I have like my emotional support water bottle always near me. So I'm not going to take their water bottles away. Like if they spill it, they spill it, they clean it up. Not a big deal. The only time was if we had like technology out like Chromebooks or iPads, then we took the water away.
Right.
But I would never take it away completely. Just not
Yeah.
who I am.
I guess one more follow-up question I have too, since we have a little bit more time, is, teachers or parents that have students with special learning needs. And sometimes like it can be frustrating when you hear that strategies work for, the general, but then maybe how does that affect my kid? Or my students. So do you have any like tips for teachers or parents about how to kind of navigate some responsive classroom practices with children that maybe have those unique needs?
I think responsive classroom is great for children with unique needs because it's a lot of patience and setting those expectations. And a lot of times those students do need expectations, like very strict expectations and like a schedule. They need to know what's going to happen and when it's going to happen. And I think responsive classroom is good at setting that up. Um, Quiet time is also great for that, just giving them that time to decompress. And responsive classroom also uses a lot of positive reinforcement, which I think is good for all students, but a lot of times those students with those special needs are sometimes a little down on themselves. And I think the positive reinforcement boosts the confidence a lot and can really help them make some breakthroughs.
Yeah. And I think too, like the piece of connection, right? So like oftentimes those kids are kind of pushed to the side or they're shuffled between classrooms or things like that for different interventions or resources. And, having that time to connect with them in the morning and the time to connect with them at the end of the day, I think is really critical too. And, reassuring them that they have someone in their corner that's rooting for them, even if they
Mhm.
feel like they're maybe a little displaced. So yeah, I
Yes.
love I love that kind of cognizant effort that parents and teachers can provide for them.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for meeting with me today. I love chatting about responsive classroom. Is something I wholeheartedly believe in as well. So this has been a great conversation. Families, if you haven't already tried out a Dailies Pods class, your first one is free. Miss Courtney is an excellent teacher. She's my own son's teacher. So feel free to visit us at dailiespods.com and sign up for your free class. And we will see you all soon. Have a great day.
Bye.